When I first got into photography, bigger always seemed better when it came to camera and lens combinations. I was obsessed with the idea of requiring a full-frame camera with a lens that would make me look like a professional. I think it's taken me a little while to realise what really matters, and after getting to use a lot of different cameras over the years, I've come to realise that for me, smaller cameras, they make sense. Whilst larger sensors and lenses might provide more detail, depth of field and overall resolution, I think there's much more to an image than just these three components. There's definitely situations and times where these things become important, but when you put it into the context of capturing images which are most likely to be shared on social media or printed at small to medium sizes, you start to realise that size, it really doesn't matter. And a lot of the time I actually prefer the way these smaller sensors render the images anyway. One of the main reasons that I've continued to shoot with micro four thirds cameras for so long isn't just because of the size, it's because I really love the images that they produce. Previously, I'd only ever used full-frame digital cameras, as I thought this was the ultimate equivalent to shooting 35mm film. And whilst I did miss the depth of field benefits from the larger sensor, I've been incredibly impressed with the way the smaller lenses controlled all aspects of the image. There's no nasty artifacts or muddiness in the corners when shooting wide open, and that's something that I often found distracting about shooting digitally. The Olympus Pen EP2 is a 15-year-old camera with a 12-megapixel micro four thirds sensor, yet it's the camera I carry around the most for everyday photography. The images it produces are sharp but not clinical, the colours are dense and vibrant, and I love the way it renders edges and textures. I recently took the Olympus on holiday to Italy as my only photo camera, and honestly, it was such a great experience. It reminded me of walking around with a point-and-shoot film camera, and it was amazing to walk around with something that's small and lightweight whilst having the confidence that the images would still look amazing at the end. So I think I'm stating the obvious when I say that smaller cameras are of course more portable. Having something that's small and lightweight that you can fit in a jacket pocket or even in a bag means that you're much more likely to use it on a regular basis, and by extension it becomes part of your everyday routine. I'm not always in the position to take out a larger camera with me, so having something that's small, lightweight and compact is a must, and smaller sensors also open up the way for smaller lenses that can be paired with the body. The Lumix 20mm 1.7 is my favourite lens for the micro four thirds mount, and it also happens to be one of the smallest. Pairing it with the Lumix GX80 means I can easily fit it in my pocket and take it out whenever an opportunity to capture something presents itself. The fact that it's a pancake lens doesn't take anything away from the quality of the images that it produces, and I've also generally just been really impressed with all of the lenses that I've bought and used for the micro four thirds mount. The Olympus 45mm 1.8 has an equivalent focal length of 90mm. It's affordable, really sharp and incredibly small. When comparing it to the Canon 85mm 1.8, there's a very stark difference between the size of both optics and bodies. I love both lenses, but I find myself using the Olympus 90% of the time just because it's smaller, lighter, and from my perspective, you're still not making a substantial compromise on image quality. So I wouldn't really describe myself as a street photographer, but I live in a city and I love carrying around my camera with me. As a result, 90% of my photography happens on the street. Having a small camera in these situations allows me to let go of the feeling that I'm standing out by doing something different, and I can focus on making pictures in a public setting without being incredibly self-conscious. Previously, there's been so many situations where I spotted something interesting to capture, but I haven't pulled out my camera for fear of looking out of place. Smaller cameras definitely solve this issue for me, and I think a big part of that is that they don't look as professional as larger setups, and so people seem to be less suspicious in these situations. And it's not just on the street where this becomes beneficial. Even when documenting my personal life, a smaller camera makes people more relaxed in a situation where I'm taking a picture or shooting some video. When I first got the GX80, I had this strange feeling of being invisible in situations when I had my camera out. People are obviously aware that you've got a camera in your hand, but the fact that it's basically the size of an iPhone means they can forget about its presence and carry on candidly. The last thing I want to cover off here is simplicity. More often than not, these smaller cameras have stripped back features to set them apart from their larger flagship counterparts. Nowadays, everything is so feature-packed that it can often feel like you're shooting with a computer instead of an actual camera, and so having fewer buttons, fewer dials, and also a simpler menu system is refreshing. Not only does it make it incredibly easy for someone who's just getting into photography to get to grips with the camera, it also cuts out a lot of the extra things that are nice to have, but you probably don't need. You can focus on using the core functions of the camera, and I often find this is when you create your best work. I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that you really don't need much to create and capture compelling work. Larger cameras definitely have a place, and smaller cameras can't compete in every situation, but more often than not, they can.